all of you in some capacity have started stuff. You're currently running a startup. You've launched multiple startups. I know you've been involved in the investing startups before, and obviously running a big company. What advice would you give to people that are perhaps wanting to start something? Because it's a big step, right? Going from working as an employee to then owning a company and being a founder and an entrepreneur. And I know we've got many entrepreneurs in the audience tonight, and I can attest to the pain and the blood and the sweat and tears it really does take. But for you guys that have been through that journey, perhaps with more grey hairs than I have got, what recommendations would you give to people that want to start something and how to be successful as an entrepreneur? The hardest topic in the world to summarize in a minute, but we'll give it a go. Why don't you start? You got the mic, kick us off.
Yeah, there's no one size fits all for this, but from my perspective, I feel like the more books you read about entrepreneurship and the more information that you take in, I think almost the worse it is. Because you can end up overthinking it, you can end up worrying about things, and you solve problems and you build companies by doing, and you do it by testing and learning. So for me, I'd say just get out there and start doing it. Start testing and learning, start validating, start speaking to customers. Just take a small step and accumulate that every day and see where it goes. But I almost feel like today there's this whole information overload around what you have to do and how many things you got to get in order before you can actually start a company. And it almost leaves people in analysis paralysis. So for me, it's just start and have a test and learn mindset.
I was literally going to say the same thing about paralysis by analysis, or whatever the term is, right? It's so true. I mean, everybody talks about it, but actually starting it and doing it is a very, very different thing. What would you say, Chris?
I think starting a company is fundamentally it's a mindset that's very different from being an employee in a company. Firstly, so I would say, make sure you really want to do it. Speaking as someone who is doing it, make sure that is actually something you really want to do. You just don't just love the idea of having started a company or having done a good job of a company. Make sure you actually want to go through the pain and the blood and the sweat of actually starting one, because it is hard. I would echo what you were saying earlier about just get going. That's really important. I think one thing you did point out though about validating and talking to customers that's the biggest thing I would say, is that so many people have a great solution, they have a great idea. That's where we tend to start. We think, oh, we've got a brilliant idea of a product that's going to change the world or something, make the world a better place, or whatever it is. And ultimately, the chances are you're wrong about your idea. You almost certainly are. The general idea might be right, but you'll need to change it. You'll need to pivot. 2/3, I think, of companies pivot to get to the final thing that works, into a different idea. So the most important thing you can do is figure out ways of validating that the idea actually exists, that you actually have a solution that matches a customer problem, that you deeply understand that customer problem, and do that before you build anything. Don't hire a bunch of engineers, don't blow your savings, don't even quit your job at this point. You can do all of that without even changing your day-to-day life. You can understand the problem, you can talk to customers, you can validate whether or not your idea might be any good. If you don't want to do that, then don't start a company.
I'd agree with that, absolutely. Everyone's got a side domain, right? I buy one every single week. It's such an amazing feeling when you buy one, and then after you get the renewal a year later, you're like, oh shit, I haven't done anything with this. Kit, what would you say for people wanting to start a business?
Nothing that I wouldn't add to what these two have just said. My normal rule is, if it feels like fantasy, then it's wrong. You need to distill it to the most boring, pragmatic distillation of whatever it is you think that's so exciting, and then that's going to be more likely what it's actually going to be. I'd say so. There's that. I think people underplay timing and luck in this. So obviously, in hindsight, there's a great story of how it all worked out, but fundamentally, I think timing and luck is about 75% of the answer. So there is something into that, which is have a look around. I know people who a year ago were like, oh, I've got this, I've gone all in, I've quit my well-paid corporate job, I'm doing this thing. And I remember saying to them, yeah, it's going to be really hard to raise money. It was an obvious fact. And guess what? It's really hard for them to raise money. So no matter how good their idea is, they are selling their own clothes right now to try and keep the lights on. And then the final thing, which I think a lot of people also underplay, is is basically fitness. So, if you don't have physical fitness, mental fitness, then all you're doing is like plowing in. It's that endurance point from all, you're burning yourself out early, and then you're not sustaining yourself. This is the thing that's going to go on for years and years. And so things like fitness will keep you in the straight and narrow and help you through the hard times, get your sleep in, all the rest of it. It's not a case anymore of I'm sleeping under my desk. I did 23 hours straight today, because you just pile in after a while, and then you're no use to anyone. So yeah.